Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, my fellow trash talkers. Whatever time you are tuning in, I'm glad to have you on board once again. You're listening to Trash Talker D Bork, and I'm your host, Dave Bork. It is Thursday, the 18th of September, 2025. This is episode number 65 of our NFL pod. Going to be running through all things that went down in week 2 action. We'll also be talking about week 3 coming up. We'll also touch on some college footy. Notre Dame. What is going on with the Fighting Irish? Yeah, we have a question that has come through about that at Trash Talker D-Walk on Insta and TikTok. Thank you once again for sending those on through for our question time segment. We'll also hit on some best bets that we had go down over the last week in college and the NFL. Not the worst week, we'll take it. And see if we can find some more winners. As is always the case, you can find this on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube. Like and subscribe there, and very much appreciate the support. So, let's touch on week 2 that's just finished up. Plenty of injuries to quarterbacks. Oh boy. Cincinnati, Joey B, gone 3 months. Likely season at this point. To be honest with you, if they're dead and buried, what's the point of bringing him back? JJ McCarthy gone for a bit. Obviously, Brock Purdy's missing some time. Jaden Daniels, which opens the door for my favourite. Let Marcus be Marcus Mariota. I do not prey on any injuries, but I'm excited to see Marcus in action for the Washington Commanders because they may need him this week after a Thursday night football kind of disaster against the Green Bay Packers. They did not look good whatsoever. They were still in the game. That's because Green Bay kind of couldn't put them away. But this Green Bay defense is legit. They're legit. They lit up Jaden Daniels in that 27-18 victory. Jordan Love going 19 of 31 for 292 and 2 touchdowns. He was crafty. Very crafty service to the man. Tucker himself had 124 yards for a touchdown as well. He was very, very nice and looks a lot better than my TJ Hawkinson selection. For whatever reason, I have him in 2 fantasy leagues, and he does not look like a tight end whatsoever right now. I don't know what's going on. I always like to say that young quarterbacks love to lean on their tight ends, but as of right now, maybe given Minnesota's injury problems, they're using TJ Hawkinson as more of a pass blocking tight end than anything else because it's a mess in mini. But going back to Green Bay, a team that looks extremely good. Josh Jacobs on the ground, 23 attempts for 84 and a touchdown. They were methodical at best, Green Bay. But just their defense just looks so good. And I know they've had 2 games at home, obviously against Detroit and Washington, and they haven't looked like losing neither of them. They sacked Jaden Daniels 4 times. He went 24 of 42 for 202 tuds. Like, you pass the ball 42 times and you're only throwing for 200. That's not enough. And they lost Austin Eckler as well. Massive injury for them. Someone who's a big pass-catching back for this Washington team. And to lose him now for the season is a huge blow. So you're now down him. Kind of eliminates that threat. Whether or not they look into the market to try and get another pass-catching back, who knows? A lot of it's going to be on Krosky Merritt, who a lot of people were after, I guess, going into some fantasy leagues for him. Could be using Debo a lot in that backfield too. McNichols as well at the same time. He's hurt. So, Washington are in a bit of strife, and obviously let go of Brian Robinson at the start of the season. Could have used him right about now and turned him into a little bit of a pass-catching back. But he's playing a pretty good role in San Fran. But yeah, look, this Green Bay defense, they just flustered Jaden Daniels, and they had no flow to them whatsoever. It's 2 huge results for the Green Bay Packers because I think they would have looked at these 2 games, or maybe not them, they always would have thought they were going to go 2-0. A lot of their fans out there thought, if we can at least get one of those first 2, especially at home, we'll take that. And they've got 2 on the board, which is enormous. And now face the Cleveland Browns in Cleveland, bit of a trap game because Joe Flacco is going to throw the ball about 50 times as well, so who knows there. Washington, face the Las Vegas Raiders in round 3, Marcus Mariota's former team, and hopefully he puts one on Pete Carroll right there just for getting rid of him in Derek Carr times, because that was pretty silly. But yeah, Green Bay, they look for real. Not so much of a smoky anymore to win the Super Bowl, that's for sure. They do have that early bye. And that's playing a lot of footy for the last 3 months of the season without a break. So a big start to the season for them is key, and they've definitely done that. So very, very good start. Talk about the Cincinnati Bengals now with that injury to Joe Burrow. How on earth they still held on to win this game is a head-scratcher. The Jacksonville Jaguars, what an absolute howler from them. Cincinnati winning that one 31-27. Good short-term, terrible long-term, obviously, with Cincinnati winning their first 2 games, but you lose arguably a runner for the MVP for the season for just about, we'll call it the year, because the season's going to be over in the next 3 months for them. Jake Browning managed to throw 3 picks in this one. There's no way that Jacksonville should be losing this game. Whether or not they took the foot off the pedal because they thought they were going to be fine without Burrow and Browning wasn't going to take him all the way down the field to eventually score the game winner himself. But just horrific execution from Jacksonville down the stretch. They obviously could have kicked a field goal. Wouldn't have mattered. But they looked lost. And we did actually have a question that's come through on Question Time at Trash Talker D-Balk on Insta and TikTok from at JSco11. Big Jags fan himself. Do you think BTJ, Brian Thomas Jr., is actually playing injured, or are they making an excuse for him for playing extremely soft? And honestly, it's concerning, mainly for one of my fantasy leagues as well, having Brian Thomas in my roster. I thought that was a very good pickup, because this is a team that should have plenty of points in them, and they do, but he is afraid of contact to start this season. It's bizarre, especially how good he was as a rookie last season, so it's definitely not the best start for him. Their other rookie that they've got right now in Travis Hunter isn't exactly lighting the world on fire either, which, they went up to go and get Travis Hunter in thinking that he was going to be a guy, and he still could be. It's week 2. But I don't know. I'm a bit lost on this team, because I had the Jags winning this division, and obviously I still think they can. The Indianapolis Colts are favoured to win the division right now, and that speaks enough in itself for how bad the Houston Texans have started the season, as well as obviously Jacksonville dropping that one that they never should have dropped. I still think the Jags can, but yeah, something needs to be figured out with Brian Thomas Jr. and Travis Hunter, because this team is far too good, in my opinion, to be losing to Cincinnati without the services of Joe Burrow. Funnily enough, Jamar Chase actually had his best game of the season. I know it's only 2 games in, but without Burrow, had 14 receptions for 165 and a tud. T. Higgins as well had 56 and a tud too. The real struggles, though, for Cincy right now, as we know, their offensive line's an absolute disaster, and this is the reason why Joe Burrow has been hurt once again. Chase Brown's given him nothing on the ground, and I honestly thought that Chase Brown was going to light the NFL on fire this year. I think he definitely hurts production now that Joe Burrow's out, because you're not going to be as focused on your wideouts as much as you would be with the arm that Burrow has compared to what Browning has, which could limit the space, I guess, that Chase Brown's got. Maybe could get a few screen passes, but yeah, their offensive line's a disaster, and that's a reason why Joe Burrow's missing more time. And if they don't look at this again in the off-season and think, how do we not shore this thing up to give him all the time in the world so he's not missing more and more game time, then Cincinnati's never going to be a threat to win a Super Bowl. Obviously, their defense is a complete disaster. We know that. So that needs to be fixed too. But the main thing is the health of Joe Burrow. So the other side of the fence, Trevor Lawrence, 24 of 32, 3 tuds, threw 2 picks as well. You're throwing 2 picks on that Cincinnati defense. That's not exactly all that. So very disappointing for the Jags. They should be 2-0 heading into a massive game against the Houston Texans this week to almost bury the Texans very early in the season. Could have gone 3-0 and 0-3. And now you're looking to avoid having both teams at 2-1. I know Jacksonville's at home, but I'd be a lot more confident if they were able to finish this game and go into playing Houston at home and knocking them off. But now it's a pretty even matchup. Cincinnati, obviously, with a very tough stretch coming up without Joe Burrow. Travel to Minnesota now. Yes, they are 2-0, but I don't think that's going to last. They're probably lucky that they're facing Minnesota, I guess, without JJ McCarthy now with his injury. But in saying that, maybe Carson Wentz wants to show everyone that he can still be a starter in this league. Who knows? This one was a weird one. Dallas, 40-37. Like, what on earth? What on earth was this game? You know, this is video game kind of stuff from Rusty. It's a shame that he threw that late pick because they probably didn't deserve to lose that game. He had 30-41 for 450 and 3 tuds. And like I said, that late pick in OT. Dak, 38-52 for 361 and 2 tuds. But I don't even want to talk about the quarterbacks. This is all Brandon Aubrey. He should be in line for the MVP right now. He can't miss. 4 of 4, 64-yarder to get this thing into overtime and never looked unlikely, to be honest with you. Whenever he's in range, and his range is enormous because the guy just simply doesn't miss, put 3 points on the board. If Dallas did not have Brandon Aubrey, they'd be in a lot of trouble. Not saying they're not in a lot of trouble as it is, but he is a lifesaver for this team. And a lifesaver for a lot of fantasy managers out there that actually have him as their kicker. And I know some actually took him ahead of even taking a quarterback this year. Because when you get to the middle stages or latter stages of your fantasy drafts, most quarterbacks are pretty much in for exactly the same, unless you have the likes of Josh Allen, Lamar, Jaden Daniels and all that, Joe Burrow. They're all in for 16, 17 a night. So go out and take Brandon Aubrey because he's a chance of getting you 20 plus a night. And he did just that once again. So, yeah, huge win for the Dallas Cowboys. They were down. They were facing an 0-2 start to the season and a loss to the New York Giants, which would not have been a good start to the year. But they managed to get that win, overcame the Malik Neighbors bomb that he had. He had 2 tuds, 9 catches for 167. Wan'Dale Robinson was also very good, 8 catches for 142 and a tud. CD, Jake Ferguson, busy, went for 200 plus combined. It's a good day for a lot of fantasy owners that had anyone in that game because just about everyone racked up the points. The Giants are at home to Kansas City in week 3. And a lot of people would think that that's a very, very troubling game for the Giants. But if you look at it, look at this. That dates back to 1978 that the Kansas City Chiefs have never beat the New York Giants at home, at MetLife. So could be some Giants cash this week. Who knows? Now, a week 1 overreaction that a lot of people had. At Eric G86 in particular. Are the Detroit Lions dead? Well, they showed everyone they are not. And we finally have ourselves a primetime football matchup to look forward to that we had in week 1. It involves Detroit in week 3. But week 2, Detroit 52-21 against the Chicago Bears. Ben Johnson's return home. It wasn't a happy return home for Ben. Jared Goff, 23-28 for 300, 5 tuds. Amon-Ra, 9 catches, 115, 3 tuds. He was brilliant and looked like that Amon-Ra that we know. Sonic and Hedgehog, Jameer Gibbs and Monty, they went for 150 plus on the ground, 2 tuds themselves. Honestly, I think a lot of people spoke about Chicago's defense coming into this year as it has improved a lot. Their offensive line's improved a lot. It clearly hadn't because Caleb Williams went 19-30 for 207, 2 tuds, a pick, got sacked 4 times. How many more excuses do we need to make for Caleb Williams? Like every former number 1 pick that's like, he's a bust, he's a bust, he's a bust. This guy has pieces upon pieces upon pieces in this team. Ben Johnson as his head coach, someone who can light Caleb Williams up, is not doing it. I know Detroit's a far better team than them. I don't think the -5.5 was enough in that game. The total definitely wasn't enough, and that was in one of our best plays, so that helped. But this Bears defense got absolutely lit up on the weekend. They got lit up in the second half, or I guess the last quarter and a half, against the Minnesota Vikings and JJ McCarthy. We saw how bad JJ was last week against Atlanta. So that is not promising. And they've got a week 3 matchup against the Dallas Cowboys at home. If this Bears team starts 0-3, oh boy. Oh boy. 2 out of the first 3 at home. Should have beat the Vikings, I think. It's a pickish game against Dallas. I don't think they were ever beaten Detroit. But it's not positive signs to start the season for a team that a lot of people thought were going to turn the corner and potentially make a playoff run. You start 0-3, I'm putting a line through you straight away, Chicago. There is no playoff football for you. Detroit, like we said, massive Monday night footy game against Baltimore coming up in week 3. We'll chat about that a little later. Seattle, 31-17 at Pittsburgh. Huge win. This is the Seattle Seahawks team that should be 2-0. They butchered it against San Fran in week 1. And I'm going to be real, Pittsburgh should be 0-2. They shouldn't have beat the New York Jets. But, managed to do that. I think Aaron Rodgers returned to his former self. He's getting sacked for fun. Threw a couple of picks as well. It might sound like I'm an Aaron Rodgers hater, but I don't love the fact that they decided to move him in and move on from not so much Russell Wilson, but Justin Fields. And I know Fields didn't look amazing against Buffalo, eventually getting hurt. But you've got to think future. Again, even if Aaron Rodgers gets you to the playoffs as a 6 or a 7 seed, you're not winning a Super Bowl. Who cares? I don't even think he gets them to the playoffs. I think this is finally the year that Pittsburgh fall apart and it doesn't happen for them. But I just think they've made a terrible mistake here. And this defense got lit up by the Jets for 30 plus and now gets lit up by the Seahawks for another 30 plus. I thought Pittsburgh were all about that grit and grind. Good defense wins you games. It hasn't started that way to start the season. Sam Darnold, it's kind of similar to the situation in Minnesota. Like, why would you move on from him after the year that he had? And I know you wanted to play JJ McCarthy right away, but you could have given him at least another year. I know he had a bad couple of games to finish the season, but this is a guy that can get the Seattle Seahawks into the playoffs. Threw 2 tuds, couple of picks as well. Not amazing. 22 of 33. Kenny Walker had a very good game on the ground too, and you never know what Kenny Walker you're going to get, but he had 105 on the ground and a tud. Their receiving core of Jackson Smith and Jigba and Cooper Kupp almost combining for 200 on 15 catches is huge. JSN is elite and does not get talked about enough. And having someone similar enough to him, I guess, in Cooper Kupp, again, playing closer to home from Eastern Washington, is enormous. And I think this Seahawks team is very, very good. They play some very good defense, clearly have enough offensively to cause some problems this year. They're going to be making a run at the NFC West. They will. At home to New Orleans this week for Seattle. Pittsburgh away to New England. New England getting their first win of the season against Miami in week 2. Braves. Excuse me. Big win for them. Hopefully. Go 1-2 for the Steelers. Rams 33-19 against the Tennessee Titans. Again, we hung tough. Had the lead going into halftime. We're playing good footy. We just can't finish off drives. Quality vets that this Rams team has. I think this Rams team are very, very capable of making a Super Bowl run this year in the NFC with Matty Stafford, Puka Nacua, Devontae Adams. Their defense is very, very, very good. They've got a huge matchup this week that I was hoping they were going to get caught slipping a little bit heading into this Tennessee matchup, but they didn't. Well, not in the second half, at least anyway. Matty Stafford, 23-33 for 298, 2 tuds, threw a pick. Kyron Williams was held in check. Had 66 rushing yards on 17 attempts for him, but just having Puka and Devontae almost going for 200, each having a touchdown, Puka on that swing as well for 45 on the ground. That's 2 very, 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 very good weapons, and Kyron Williams is very good on the ground too. And they're not a team that will usually kind of blow you out of the park and take all those shots with you. They can kind of control the ball because Puka Nacua extremely good in the slot. Devontae Adams, same deal. They're just a team that can continue to move the chains at short event, and their defense is going to be able to stop you. It's what they managed to do to us. Got a couple of big stops. Cam Ward, 19-33, 175 and a tud. I'm not hating on Cam Ward at all. It's our offensive line that's a complete mess. And I've said that with a lot of young quarterbacks, that if they don't have the time to throw the ball, they're going to get sacked and make some bad plays too. Got sacked 5 times. JC Latham was out injured. That's a big injury for him, missing that one against that Rams pass rush there. So it's tough. Alike Minor, I think for those of you that don't have him on your fantasy rosters, I'd be looking to pick him up because he could almost take over Calvin Ridley's role here with Tennessee, and long term as well. If you're in those keeper leagues, he could be one to keep. 4 catches for 56 and a tud. Managed to pick him up in at least one of my leagues, so that was handy. But yeah, until Tennessee fix that offensive line, similar to Cincinnati, then we're probably not going to be winning too many games this season. But we have a very winnable game here in week 3. Tough start to the season, obviously, at Denver. Them playing the Rams. I think that's 2 teams that are going to be making the playoffs. They now have the Indianapolis Colts at home. This is a very winnable game for the Tennessee Titans. Big number, +4, seriously. The Rams travel to Philly. Big game, week 3. Late window, weird one. I think Denver was stunned on that late kind of 15-yard penalty, which moved the Indianapolis Colts forward to kick a 45-yard winner there, 29-28. Daniel Jones continues to look like the MVP this season, 23 of 34 for 316 and a tud. They're running the football very well. We've got to be able to contain that going into week 3. Arizona almost lost the unlosable against the Carolina Panthers, especially with Carolina getting that off that onside kick, which is incredibly rare now. So that's just unfortunate that Bryce Young kind of couldn't finish it off. So look, Arizona might be 2-0, but it's an unimpressive 2-0. They face the San Francisco 49ers in week 3. They're pretty lucky. It's a soft start to the year, especially without Brock Purdy, but maybe Mac Jones can get it done. The Super Bowl rematch, if you want to call it a week 2 overreaction, but is this it for the Kansas City Chiefs? Is this it? Because, yes, their defense looks still very, very good, and they were able to, limit Philly to 20 points and, holding Jalen Hurts to 100 yards, holding Saquon to, only 88 and a tud. That's a pretty average day for him. So you're holding AJ Brown to 27 yards. How on earth are you losing that game? At home, too, 20-17. Mahomes, 16-29 for 187. 1 touchdown, 1 pick. He is trucking everyone on the ground. The guy's an absolute unit. 7 carries for 66 and a tud. But again, you look at that box score for Philly, you see those numbers outside of what Mahomes has kind of put up, because that's not a whole lot himself. You can't be losing games like that, especially at home. So that's an incredibly bad result for them. And Travis Kelce had another drop going into the end zone, which is so rare from him. Father time, tick-tock. It is. Yeah, it's going. 0-2 for the Chiefs, like I said. Travel to the Giants in week 3. Philadelphia get the Rams, which is a big game. I don't know how it's not Sunday night footy. Seriously. How the hell is that a 3 a.m. slot here? Speaking of Sunday night footy and Monday night footy, yuck. Atlanta 22-6 against the Minnesota Vikings. We were on that over in one of our best bets, which I thought was a pretty good find, especially the way the game started with an early fumble, gets Atlanta in good field position. But boy, oh boy, they couldn't get anything going, Minnesota more than anything else. Bijan, we spoke about it. For Atlanta to win games, they need him to be very, very good on the ground. And if he's going to give you that, 23 for 143, no reward for effort with a touchdown. They went to Tyler Algier for his touchdown, but he rushed for 76 as well. So when you're getting 200 plus on the ground from them, it's never going to be pretty on the scoreboard, because it doesn't mean Michael Penix has to do a whole lot. And he didn't. He didn't at all. McCarthy, nothing. And now that he's been injured, has now opened the door, obviously, for Carson Wentz. So this Minnesota offense has far too much quality, obviously, with Justin Jefferson. Aaron Jones is now injured too. Jordan Mason at running back. But when you got JJ, you got TJ Hawkinson, I think Carson Wentz is finally going to use TJ Hawkinson. You will see him get some touches. If he doesn't, I'll be pretty disappointed. But when you look at Hawkinson only getting a catch and you look at Kyle Pitts going 4 for 37, is this finally the year for Kyle Pitts? Who knows? Questions need to be asked if Minnesota honestly made the right decision. And I know after week 1 we're like, oh, JJ McCarthy, he's a guy. He played good for 1.5 quarters, if that, against Chicago. He was awful in his home debut. So yeah, that wasn't very good for them. Atlanta travelled to Carolina. I know Carolina, they try hard, but you'd like to think they're arguably one of the worst run defenses in the league. And the way Atlanta just ran the football, you could see something similar to that happening again this week. So I won't be touching a total in that one, but I would be leaning towards the likes of Bijan and Algier either to score a touchdown or their rushing yards over could be very, very, very much so on the cards. Monday Night Footy, we had a doubleheader. Thankfully, it wasn't an overlapping doubleheader because those absolutely suck when you've kind of got to toggle between games. But yes, I know this game went down to the wire with Tampa Bay and Houston, but it was a bludger of a game outside of the first quarter. We were watching that game thinking this game is absolutely going to sail over. Weren't on the total or anything like that, but it just looked like it was going to be a back and forth game. Like CJ Stroud finally had found his mojo against a secondary that's simply not that good. And we knew Houston weren't going to run the ball because if there's one thing that Tampa Bay do very well, it is stop the run. And there's a lot of people questioning if they actually just let Nick Chubb go through. Because Nick Chubb had absolutely nothing on the ground leading up to that last run to score that touchdown, to give Tampa Bay the ball back. Now, after seeing that, Baker didn't play that well, obviously, throughout the course of the game, but you give Baker Mayfield a chance to go down and win you a game, had a massive third down run, got hit. He's going to go out there and win you a game. Now, there was 30 to 35 seconds left, and Tampa Bay had the ball on the 20-yard line. Houston had all 3 timeouts. They had all 3 timeouts. D'Amico Ryans, welcome to the trash this week. D'Amico Ryans decided to call a timeout with 9 seconds left. And by that time, it just got to a point of we need to stop them to win this game, but we're also giving our offense absolutely no chance of winning this thing if we don't. And he called that timeout when they were inside the 10. Clearly didn't stop him. Rashad White scoring that touchdown to win the game. But if you call a timeout at least with 30 seconds left and Tampa Bay score, you've got yourself at least 20 seconds on the clock with 2 timeouts. Nope. Decided not to. So it's an absolute shocker from him. Tampa play the Jets at home this week. Could be a bit of a look-ahead spot, and they could be gassed after that too. They're missing a few offensive linemen, and Baker obviously taking a hit. Houston away to Jacksonville. Continuing our trash bowl here, which was Monday Night Football, was the Chargers winning that one 20-9. Geno could not play any worse in this one. He was terrible. 24 of 43 for 180, 3 picks, 3 sacks. But is this Los Angeles Chargers team legit? One of our week 2 overreactions, this Los Angeles Chargers team can win the Super Bowl. They can win the AFC West. They got a massive game against Denver this week. It's absolutely enormous. But this is a chance to put a gap on a lot of other teams. You've already beat the Chiefs. You could already beat Denver. And then you could already beat Las Vegas. Damn. 3 wins in your division to start the season would be enormous, especially if the Chiefs go on to lose to the Giants. Justin Herbert is looking elite. And I don't know who worked on Quentin Johnston's hands in the offseason, but he drops that every day of the week last season. Another bomb from him. 3 for 71 in the tud. Keenan Allen said it last week, never should have left. He looks brilliant. 5 for 61 in the tud. Herbert finished 19 to 27, 242, 2 tuds. Also rushed for 31 on the ground. And yeah, this is a team that looks legit. Ashton Genty kind of goes into our trash pile this week because he is battling to block anyone right now. And there's a reason why maybe a lot of people were skeptical of the pick as to why you don't pick running backs that early, and that's not taking anything away from the career that Ashton Genty had at Boise State. But if you're unable to pick up any kind of pass rush, then you're going to battle to play a whole lot of time in the league. And he's been trucked a couple of times. So, yeah, bit of a shocker from Ashton, but hopefully he has a long career ahead of him. Further in our trash pile goes to the Jags' decision-making. They were awful in late-game decisions. Had the ball deep in Cincy territory, could have kicked a field goal, but also could have scored. Something's not right, like I said earlier, with Brian Thomas Jr. and Travis Hunter. They got Liam Cohen in there as a head coach, brilliant offensive mind like him. You can't be turning the ball over the way they did against the Cincinnati defense that couldn't stop a cold. They quite simply need to turn this around quick smart against Houston. They're lucky that they've got them on a short week because I think they can, but it's also prime for CJ Stroud to kind of bounce back against the Jags defense that couldn't stop Jake Browning. Pittsburgh, their kickoff return team or special teams, whatever you want to call it, need to learn the rules. That if the ball lands in the landing zone, you can't just simply leave it to bounce into the end zone. It doesn't work like that anymore. Copping that touchdown there late would be, pretty bad. But I can't say I feel sorry for you, Pittsburgh. And last but not least, I'm putting Pete Carroll in there. From watching the Seahawks when Pete Carroll used to coach them, Pete was someone who loved to kick field goals or punt the ball on 4th and short, kick field goal to make it an 11-point game here for the Las Vegas Raiders, down 20-6 with 11 minutes left in the last quarter, Pete. There's not 11 minutes left in the first quarter or the second quarter. 11 minutes left in the last, and you couldn't stop the Chargers regardless. They needed to score 2 touchdowns. You can't go kicking that field goal to make it 20-9, simply. He just turned a 2-score game into a 2-score game. It's just stupid. I don't get it, and Pete Carroll never gets it. That's why kind of Seattle moved on from Pete, and it's not to say that he's a bad coach because he clearly coached the game, but yeah, that was a bad coaching decision from him. It could have been the game that Gino was having, obviously, but at the same time, you've got to go for that. Bad loss for Vegas. They're in a position to win that game. Turn the ball over. Doesn't help. We'll go to question time now at Trash Talk with D-Borg on Insta and TikTok. Have a couple more questions that have been sent through. This one from at EricG86. How do you simply stop the tush push? It can't be stopped. Well, it can be if you're not the Philadelphia Eagles because no other team knows how to execute it. So the only way to execute it as well as them is to have yourself an Aussie offensive lineman who's going to teach you how to scrum, exactly how they used to do it here in the rugby league, and push forward. Maybe you need more Jordan Mailatas in your league. The only other team that's kind of close to executing it as well as what Philly do is Buffalo, but we know that the biggest tush push mis-execution was from Josh Allen a couple of years ago in the playoffs now. So I don't know, because it can be 3rd and 2 and Philly just going to have 2 tush pushes and they'll get there. Unless there's a false start, that's about the only thing that's stopping it. So I think they've been stopped on it maybe once, and that was last season, I think. So I don't know if it needs to be outlawed because it's not exactly fun to watch, but they are the only team that know how to execute it and execute it extremely well. So maybe just don't get in a situation where it is 2nd and short, 3rd and short, 4th and short against the Eagles. Otherwise, you're not getting the ball back. At young_Gab, thoughts on the latest college football rankings and Notre Dame's start to the season. Said it before the season started that I was very, very high on Notre Dame, obviously with the coming off the season that they had and with my boy in head office there. But they've had 2 tough losses. You lose to Miami by 3 on the road, a team that's now ranked inside the top 4, but should have finished off Texas A&M at home. Texas A&M now ranked inside the top 10, jump up to 10 after a late game touchdown win there against Notre Dame. Brutal 4th and goal on the 11, I believe it was, and it was a pass to their tight end that won them the game. But this is a Notre Dame team that was built on the run game. and build on their defense. Their defense has copped it 2 games in a row against Miami and Texas A&M. Notre Dame somehow still ranked at 24. But this is the thing now with Notre Dame is that their schedule gets incredibly soft in a way. Should handle Purdue very, very comfortably this week. Then they travel to Arkansas, and Arkansas are a team that could put on plenty of points. And as of right now, Notre Dame can't stop anyone. So if you're not going to be able to stop anyone, you got to put on some style points. And they've showed that they're able to score some points, no doubt about that. But they're going to have to do that and going to have to learn how to stop someone. If they can hold Arkansas to next to nothing with how good their offense is, then that'll be big time for them. They do play USC in a few weeks, and they're going to hope that USC run the table up until the point that they play them, and they play USC at home. That would be their only match that's kind of a rankable chance to knock someone off, and they need to beat them in convincing fashion. They need to win a lot of these games in convincing fashion if they're to sneak back inside the 12 and have some carnage ahead of them. Every chance that can happen, but as of right now, they needed to win that one against Texas A&M, and they couldn't do that. So they probably need Texas A&M to run the table at the same time. Ditto Miami. In terms of the other rankings, Oregon slipped a couple of spots to number 2. They didn't look that great against Northwestern, but I think they got their sights set on Penn State in a couple of weeks at Penn State too in that one. So that'll be a big time matchup for them. I think they can win that one. I know Penn State are at number 2. I think the most overrated team is LSU at the 3 spot. They just beat Florida 20-10, but DJ Lagway threw 5 picks. Yeah, watch the SEC doco to think the Florida fans thought that DJ Lagway was the saviour, but yeah, that's a disaster. But yeah, LSU were lucky to hold on there and win 20-10. So I can't see that lasting for LSU, and a lot of people are high on Garrett Nussmeier, but I'm not. And they've got a pretty tough stretch coming up. They'll play Ole Miss at Ole Miss, then play at Vandy, play at Bama. They'll slide, and there's every chance I think they miss the playoffs if you're LSU. So keep an eye out for that one, because that's probably one I'd be laying some hard-earned on. All right. Thank you for the questions. Let's go now to NFL Week 3 preview. Thursday Night Footy. This one's been a feature over the last couple of years. With the Buffalo Bills facing off against the Miami Dolphins, and boy oh boy, I can't see this thing being close whatsoever. It's actually impossible to see this thing being close. It's a line of minus 11.5. I don't know how we're not in excess of 2 touchdowns, but it's always a bit of a touch and go here because Miami could get a late score. Buffalo have some issues on the defensive side of the football coming into this week on a short week. But you always tend to favour the better teams in this spot. I don't think Buffalo lose, but I'm not going to be touching the minus 11.5. I may, if you want to play an alt line, you maybe take the minus 9.5 to take them to win by a touchdown and a field goal. Miami are just a complete mess right now. If there's anyone whose hot seat is getting a whole lot hotter, it is Mike McDaniels. I think he could be potentially sacked halfway through the season because at the end of the day, you've still got Tua, you got Tyreek Hill, you got Devon Archer, and you got Jalen Waddle, and this team is just not winning games. And their offensive line's a bit of a mess too. We said it before, Tua's one more head knock away from being done. So if you can't protect him, your defense isn't stopping anyone. You're not going to be stopping the Buffalo Bills. The Bills roll on here Thursday Night Footy. Houston, Jacksonville, I'll touch on a couple of games here in this early slate. The AFC South Divisional Bowl, only because I'm really not putting Indianapolis Colts in this yet. I know they've had a hot start to the season, but they still have Daniel Jones at quarterback. Yes, he's had a great start to the season, but I do not care. The Texans' offense is legitimately on struggle street. Offensive line is struggling. They're lucky they're playing the Jags because if there's a game that CJ Stroud could eventually find some kind of form, it is this one. He was finding it a little bit against Tampa and how bad their secondary is, but it kind of still looks lost. I don't know what's going on with Houston. I said it last week. There was a question that came through from Adacero.D about that sophomore slump, or 2.0 if you want to call that, for CJ Stroud. Yes, their weapons still aren't all that. He still has Nico Collins. Dalton Schultz is probably their next best target, and Higgins. So And when Nick Chubb is your best running back because of the Joe Mixon injury, that's a problem. It is. So, honestly, Jacksonville should be winning this game at home. They have to win this game at home against Houston. You got Houston on a short week, all their injuries. Jacksonville completely blew it against Cincy. Take care of home field and beat the Houston Texans and get them to an 0-3 start. Could be points in that one. Weather watch, but that may be a play. Cincinnati at Minnesota. You would have circled this game at the start of the season. You would have thought, Joe Burrow versus JJ McCarthy, how good. No, we're getting Jake Browning versus Carson Wentz. So this is an opportunity for Carson Wentz to show the NFL world that he can still play with everyone out there and kind of revive his career a la Sam Darnold last year as to what Minnesota could do. Kevin O'Connell's an incredible head coach who can probably make this work. And I said it before, I think we're going to see more TJ Hawkinson with Carson Wentz at quarterback. He's smarter than JJ McCarthy. JJ McCarthy still looks incredibly raw. I think this is a very good spot for Mini. Yes, they've got some injuries. Van Ginkel and Christian Darrisaw being probably two of the biggest ones at that. Jordan Addison still to come back from suspension. But it's very rare that you're going to see this team lose 2 games at home. And they lost in incredibly ugly fashion to Atlanta. You now get the benefit, I know you don't have your starting quarterback, but you get the benefit of no Joe Burrow. No Joe Burrow coming to your building. Take care of business and take care of Jake Browning, who threw 3 picks against the Jacksonville Jaguars. I do not believe he has any hope of getting this done in Minnesota. I'm hoping this line does cross back to the 2.5 or 3, and I'd probably be riding with Minnesota. I don't know if I'm ready yet to be riding with Carson Wentz, but this could also be a game, we've seen it from Minnesota so far to start the season, that Chase Brown actually gets going. They haven't been able to stop the run. Chase Brown hasn't been able to get the run game going. If you're ever going to do it on a defense that just copped 200 plus on the ground, it could be this week for him. My fantasy team hopes. Los Angeles Rams traveling to the Philadelphia Eagles. This is week 2 playoff rematch that we saw last year. And the Rams actually almost knocked off the Eagles. The Eagles completely butchered a late game lead and almost lost that one, being played pretty much in the snow. But I think this is one that the Rams have probably circled for quite some time. You know, the Eagles would have circled Kansas City Chiefs matchup last week, and they took care of business there in somewhat ugly fashion. But I think Rams have been focusing heavily on this one. They weren't the best in week 1, but they managed to hold CJ Stroud to under 10 points. Held the Titans to next to nothing last week. So they now get the Eagles away from home as a bit of a revenge spot for what went down last year in the playoffs. Last year, Saquon ran all over them in both matchups. In the playoffs last year, he ran for 200 plus and 2 touchdowns. And that was literally the game. 2 big plays from him on the ground. It was almost an 80-yard touchdown and like a 65-yard touchdown from Saquon. And that was it. That was all that was needed to be done for Philly. So if they're able to limit Saquon and make Jalen Hurts beat you with his arm, maybe have a look at A.J. Brown if he still likes him, then I think that's the only way that the Rams can win this game. You shut Saquon Barkley down, Jalen Hurts on the ground. I know, easier said than done. But if you're able to do that, I think the Rams get this one. You get plus 160 for them to win this game. I'd wait. I think you get more close to kickoff. Indy at Tennessee. I think a lot of people are probably laughing that I'm actually talking about this one. But Tennessee started the season, like I said, against Denver, away from home, and the Rams. 2 teams, especially the Rams, that I believe are contending for a Super Bowl. The Indianapolis Colts are not contending for a Super Bowl. They may have started the season 2-0, and Danny Dimes and Jonathan Taylor look incredibly good. They should have lost that game last week. Should have. They missed the 60-yard field goal and then got pushed forward on the back of a penalty. So they should be going into this one at 1-1. They've also played the Miami Dolphins in the first game of the season, and we've all seen how bad Miami are. If anything, Tennessee comes into this game incredibly more tested than what the Indianapolis Colts do. Colts have played both games at home. Haven't been on the road yet. So they get their first true road test with Danny Dimes this week at Tennessee. I'm baffled that the line is 4 to the Tennessee Titans. Tennessee getting 4 points at home. They showed that they can hang with the Rams, just needed to play 60 minutes of football. They couldn't do that. If they can do that against the Colts, I have no doubts that they are covering this line. But by the looks of things, it's potentially moving to 5. So this is another wait and see kind of game as well. I'll see if JC Latham and some of the other boys get healthy on that offensive line, because if they do, then Tennessee are a play here. Probably more of an outright play than they are to cover, for value's sake. Las Vegas travel to Washington. Again, 2 teams coming off the back of losses, but let Marcus be Marcus, baby. I know Jaden Daniels hasn't officially been ruled out yet, but they have a serviceable backup in Marcus Mariota. I can call him a Jaden Daniels clone because I'm someone who's watched Marcus since he was in high school. And I get it that Jaden Daniels is obviously a lot better now. But when you think about it, when Marcus came into the league on the back of his brilliant career at Oregon after winning a Heisman Trophy, I'll do anything to say that Marcus Mariota is arguably the greatest college quarterback of all time. Tim Tebow fans, come after me if you want. I don't know, he didn't win a national title, but he got injured in the Natty game. I was there, still crying about it, trust me. But Mariota has a chance to be in a situation like Carson Wentz to somewhat revive his career. Because if Jaden Daniels does manage to miss some time, let's call it 2 to 3 weeks, you're going to get Marcus having a chance to show everyone that he can still play. And if you look around the league, there's still plenty of teams that kind of need a quarterback to actually come in and play. It shows you that rookies also, not every rookie I should say that, is ready to step in straight away and just ball out. It doesn't work that way. JJ McCarthy, it doesn't look like it. Caleb Williams, they're never going to say it, but it doesn't look like he is even ready to rock and roll. Mariota can show up against Vegas, against his former team at home, and get Washington this win. A lot is going to be played on the ground. You're going to see a lot of kind of reverse action, and maybe Deebo Samuel as well. Not going to be taking too many shots, but this is a huge opportunity for him to get it done. I think it could be a lower scoring game, so maybe the under 44 could be in play. Or if Marcus is Marcus, then Washington can put up points against a Vegas defense. I'd rather be on the under. Denver Chargers, first game in the late window. Probably the best game in the late window, if you want to call it that. It's a big spot. You know, Denver are pretty lucky not to be 0-2. They probably should have lost to Tennessee in week 1 with the amount of turnovers that they had. Tennessee just couldn't take advantage of it. And the Chargers have been brilliant through the opening 2 weeks, obviously in Brazil and against Las Vegas. So they get their first home game against the Denver Broncos. We know it's not the biggest home field advantage playing at SoFi, but if this doesn't have Chargers fans fired up by now, that their team looks legitimate, like a Super Bowl contender, if they don't come out and support their team, boy oh boy. Honestly, because this is a team that can win the AFC West. This could be the AFC West deciding game or a factor in that at least, because the Chiefs don't look like the Chiefs anymore. But you get 2 former Oregon quarterbacks, Bo Nix and Justin Herbert, going head-to-head against each other. I'm seeing points in this game. I know both defenses are very good, but Denver just copped 29 to the Indianapolis Colts. Herbert can continue to put points on the board here, and I think Bo Nix has enough in him, again, inside a controlled environment, that there should be points put on the board here. So I'm seeing that because the rest of this late window is not all that. You know, New Orleans at Seattle, Arizona at the 49ers. I know Arizona are undefeated, the Niners are as well, but Mac Jones, who knows, he could still potentially get a win against Arizona, but yeah, no Purdy, no Kittle doesn't really give me any appetite to kind of keep an eye on that too much. I'll keep an eye on the Seattle one because they're probably going to be my survivor this week against the Saints. But other than that, you got Dallas at Chicago. Dallas, as we saw, putting up a video game-like performance or copying a video game-like performance against the New York Giants. So I'll say it again. If the weather is clear in this one, if Caleb Williams cannot attack this putrid Dallas secondary, especially without Deron Bland, then maybe Tyson Bagent deserves some freaking time. Because how many more excuses can we continue to make for Caleb Williams? Maybe get DeAndre Swift more involved in this one. That may not be the worst shout. Because DJ Moore runs routes and just simply doesn't get the ball. I actually hurt for DJ Moore. Like, he needs to be moved out of Chicago. I know he signed a long-term deal, but somehow trade him out of there. They moved on Keenan Allen. Look at Keenan Allen now for the Chargers. He's revived his career again. DJ Moore could do just that. in a good team. But I see points here. If Caleb can't put up at least 250 plus against Dallas, then he'll likely feature in our Sunday Funday player prop parlays. But I'm also brave for even wanting to put him in. Dallas are very lucky that they're not 0-2. They could also be 2-0 as well at the same time. Chicago staring down the barrel at 0-3. Pickish game here. It is enormous. You're going to have plenty of home support, but Dallas Cowboys fans do travel. Sunday night footy, honestly, how is this the Sunday night football game and we have the Rams up against the Philadelphia Eagles? Like, what are we doing? Kansas City, away to the Giants, said it before, dates back to 78, they haven't been able to beat the Giants at MetLife. They're 6-point favourites here, and I see nothing to show me that they should be 6-point favourites. And I know the Giants are not a very good football team, but this is also their home opener. They were away to Washington to start the year and then away to Dallas, both in division rivalry games. They now get the Chiefs and an opportunity for Russell Wilson to show out on Sunday night against a Chiefs team that's yet to win a game. Their defense is playing some very good footy, but their offensive line's a complete disaster. And this Giants D-line, if they do have one strength on the defensive side of the ball, it is just that. They are going to get after Patrick Mahomes. It's their only chance is to absolutely beat him up to kind of get a W here. But, you know, Rusty just put on 450 against Dallas. I don't think he's going to put 450 on the Chiefs because the Chiefs secondary does actually look legit. But you've got to go into that game with some kind of confidence, and I think Malik Neighbours will too, that he'll want to show out on primetime Sunday Night Football and put the Chiefs at 0-3 to start the season. I don't think anyone had that on their bingo card. I know, you know, they played in Brazil. Tough start to the year, yes. Then play at home against Philly. I honestly thought they were a good play against Philly. I had a shocker there. But, yeah, they only just lost, but they never really looked likely. Monday Night Football, though. Thank goodness for this. Lions at Ravens, a primetime game that we have to look forward to. Yes, we had it in week 1 with Buffalo and Baltimore. This is huge. And I'll still say it, a potential Super Bowl preview. Derrick Henry was unsighted last week against the Cleveland Browns. They didn't need him. They still put 40 plus on the board. He is going to be needed in every single down here against Detroit to knock them off. I don't really have a whole lot of confidence in either secondary right now, apart from, you know, Cole Hamilton playing for Baltimore. This is a team that, you know, couldn't hold on to a 41-25 lead against the Buffalo Bills, and I hold Detroit pretty high in regards to that as well at the same time. This total climbed up to 52.5 now. I'm hoping it does come down to 51.5, and I'll probably take that because it's gone through one of the numbers. But this game being played on the national stage, Lamar Jackson's going to want to put in some points on the board to further make another case for him winning the MVP this season. Yes, they had 4 bad minutes against Buffalo, but that is not going to rob him of winning the MVP. You get Lamar and King Henry up against Jared Goff, Sonic the Hedgehog, and both their running backs, Amon-Ra, Sam Laporta. There's points to be had in this game. As long as the weather is clear, we know that outside conditions could be different. But until that frost kind of starts to set in Baltimore, this should be a very, very fast, entertaining game of football. And as Motor City Dan right there behind me, the bobblehead, he's ready to rock and roll for this one. They got through that Chicago game, put on a statement there to show and remind the NFL world that they are not going anywhere. And yes, they can still lose this game to Baltimore, and I still think that'll be the case, but they cannot get the doors blown off them. I think it'll be score for score. It's going to be a highly entertaining game of footy. It'll be good fun to watch. Let's try and find some best bets now in the college arena, which we don't put to our record. I'll say that again. In the NFL arena, which we do. All right, so we went 3-2 last week in the NFL, which takes us now to 4-4 overall. 3-1 on totals last week, and obviously losing to the Kansas City Chiefs on that one. One of our Sunday Funday parlays saluted on TikTok and Insta at Trash Talker D-Bork, so always keep your eyes and ears peeled for that one. We always have plays on primetime games as well, but unfortunately did not hit there. College last week, 2 of our best actually saluted, which was nice. Texas Tech, I believe, was one of them, in the over in the Arkansas Ole Miss game. So we'll start with college again this week. We go the under 47.5 Auburn, Oklahoma. Mentioned it before with LSU and their rankings. Florida getting plus 7.5 at Miami. I know Miami are absolutely flying right now. If DJ Lagway doesn't throw 5 picks, they go down to lose 20-10 to LSU. And he threw 5 picks at LSU. They cover very, very comfortably. And I believe you're getting a very good number here as long as he can shake that off and get a big win in a rivalry game against Miami. And then we'll take the over 61.5 Ole Miss Tulane. NFL talk. We're taking the Jets plus the 7 at Tampa Bay. I know Justin Fields is out, but Tyrod Taylor is very, very serviceable backup and someone who can probably attack Tampa Bay's weakness more so, if anything, in that secondary. So, especially with Tampa Bay coming off a short week as well at the same time, I've got some confidence in Tyrod being able to get this done. Denver Chargers, I'm taking the over 45.5. Said it before, 2 Oregon quarterbacks. Give me that play every day of the week. Waiting on Detroit, Baltimore. If you see this number at 51.5, take the over. I'm unable to do it just yet, but that'll be a play there. We'll attack 2 more totals. We'll go Jacksonville, Houston over the 44. I'll have some kind of confidence in CJ Stroud getting this done. Dallas, Chicago over the 50.5 as well. We will take an under this week. If Jaden Daniels is officially ruled out and it's Marcus Mariota up against Geno Smith, take the under 44 if that is the case in that game. So that is it for today's episode. Much appreciation for tuning in as always. Keep your eyes and ears peeled on socials for more plays that we've got. As always, our Sunday Fun Day, it's going to be a fun one. Can't wait for week 3 action to get underway. This has been Trash Talker D-Bork. Enjoy your